Lisa Morgan walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council building. Her footsteps echoed in the enormous hallway made of crystal and metal from a dozen different worlds. She had been Earth's ambassador for 12 years now, and she was tired of the same old arguments. Every day brought new rules about what humans could and could not do. Every week brought new restrictions on where human ships could go. Every month brought new limits on how many colonies Earth could build. The other ambassadors looked at her with the same cold eyes they always had. The tall blue Zephyrians with their 4 arms crossed in disapproval. The floating gas beings from Altair who spoke in musical tones that somehow always sounded condescending. The rock-like Rigelians who moved slowly but thought even slower when it came to giving humans a fair chance. They all treated her like she was a child who had wandered into an adult conversation. Lisa took her seat at the human section of the Great Council Chamber. The chair was smaller than the others and placed slightly behind the main circle. It was a not-so-subtle reminder that Earth was still considered a junior member after 30 years of membership. She opened her tablet and looked at today's agenda. The main item was the Kepler 442 system mining rights. Her heart sank as she read the details. 3 months ago, human ships had discovered the system. Human scientists had proven it contained the largest deposits of rare minerals ever found. Human engineers had designed the mining stations. Human workers had built the preliminary infrastructure. But today the council would vote on who got to control it all. Lisa already knew how this would end. It always ended the same way. The council speaker called the session to order. His voice boomed through the chamber in the universal translator that made all languages sound flat and emotionless. We gathered to decide the fate of mining rights in the Kepler 442 system. The Altarian Consortium has made a formal claim based on their superior technology and experience. Lisa stood up. With respect, Speaker, I must remind the Council that humans discovered this system. Our people mapped it. Our engineers designed the mining platforms. Our workers are already building the first stations. By every law of space exploration, these rights belong to Earth. The Altarian representative floated higher in the chamber. When he spoke, his words came out as musical notes that the translator turned into speech. The young species from Earth lacks the wisdom to manage such valuable resources. They have proven themselves too aggressive and unpredictable. We offer stable management for the good of all council members. Lisa felt her hands clench into fists. She had heard this speech 100 times before. Humans were always too young, too aggressive, too unpredictable. Never mind that human technology had saved 3 different species from extinction. Never mind that human doctors had cured diseases that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. Never mind that human diplomats had negotiated peace treaties that ended wars lasting thousands of years. The speaker continued. The Zephyrian delegate wishes to address the council. The tall blue alien unfolded his 4 arms. We support the Altarian claim. Humans have shown they cannot be trusted with important responsibilities. Look at their military expansion. Look at how they arm their merchant ships. Look at how they refuse to submit to proper oversight of their colonies. They are a threat to galactic peace. Lisa stood again. Our merchants arm their ships because council peacekeepers refuse to patrol human space. Our colonies are under constant attack from pirates and raiders. We asked for protection and were told our space is too remote and too dangerous. We asked for patrol ships and were told the council fleet is too busy with more important matters. We asked for the right to defend ourselves and were told we are too aggressive. The chamber filled with the alien equivalent of murmurs and whispers. Lisa could see the other ambassadors exchanging glances. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked angry. A few looked like they were trying not to laugh. The speaker raised his hand for silence. The council will now vote on the Kepler 442 mining rights. All in favor of granting exclusive rights to the Altarian Consortium, raise your indicators. Lisa watched as indicator after indicator rose around the chamber. The Zephyrians voted yes. The Rigelians voted yes. The Centauri voted yes. Even the species that humans had helped voted yes. When the count was finished, the result was overwhelming. 47 votes for the Altarian claim. 3 votes for the human claim, 2 abstentions. The motion passes, the speaker announced. The Altarian Consortium is granted exclusive mining rights to the Kepler 442 system. All human operations in the system will cease within 30 days. This concludes today's session. Lisa sat in her chair as the other ambassadors filed out. She stared at her tablet screen where a new message had appeared. It was from Earth's president. The message was short and to the point. "How bad is it this time?" She typed back quickly. "They took Kepler 442, 3 months of work, billions of dollars invested, given to the Altarians because we are too young to handle it." The president's response came within minutes. "Enough is enough. Come home, Lisa. It's time to consider other options." Lisa looked around the empty chamber. The crystal walls reflected the light from distant stars. This building was supposed to represent unity and cooperation among the species of the galaxy. Instead, it had become a place where humans were constantly reminded of their place at the bottom of the hierarchy. She gathered her things and walked toward the exit. In the hallway, she passed a group of Zephian staff members. They stopped talking when they saw her and watched her with their cold black eyes. One of them said something in their own language. The others laughed. Lisa did not need a translator to understand the tone. Outside the building, she found Captain Jake Sullivan waiting by the shuttle. He was the military observer assigned to watch council proceedings. His weathered face showed the same frustration she felt. "Bad news, I take it," he said as she approached. "The worst," she replied. "They gave our system to the Altarians, 47-3, Jake shook his head. "My ships are getting attacked every week in the outer colonies. I ask for help and they tell me to file a report. I ask for patrol support, and they tell me the council fleet is too busy. I ask for permission to increase our defenses and they tell me we are becoming too militaristic." Lisa climbed into the shuttle. "How many human ships have we lost this month?" 17, Jake answered. 3 military vessels and 14 merchants. "The raiders are getting bolder because they know we can't get backup from the council fleet." The shuttle lifted off and headed toward the human embassy ship orbiting the council homeworld. Lisa looked down at the alien city below. It was beautiful in its own way, but it had never felt like home. Nothing in council space felt like home anymore, her communication device chimed. A message from Dr. Amy Richardson on Earth. Amy was the head of the Human Cultural Exchange Program and one of the few people who still believed cooperation with the aliens was possible. The message was brief but telling. They canceled the Joint Research Program, 30 years of work on alien diseases. They said human methods are too dangerous. They are keeping all our research but ending our participation. I don't know what to tell my team. Lisa closed her eyes. The Joint Research Program had been her proudest achievement. Human doctors working with alien scientists to cure diseases that affected species across the galaxy. It had saved millions of lives. But now it was over because humans were too dangerous to be trusted with important work. The shuttle docked with the embassy ship. Lisa walked to her quarters and sat at her desk. She opened a secure communication channel to Earth and began typing a message to the president. The words came easily because she had been thinking them for months. "Sir, the situation here is no longer sustainable. We are not partners in this council. We are not even junior members. We are tokens. We are kept around to make the other species feel good about their inclusiveness, but we are never allowed to actually participate as equals. I recommend we begin immediate preparations for withdrawal from the council. It is time to go our own way." She hit send and leaned back in her chair. Outside her window, the stars looked different than they had that morning. They looked like freedom. President Jonathan Hayes was sleeping when the emergency alert woke him at 3 in the morning. The red light on his bedside table was flashing and the secure phone was ringing. He had been president for 6 years and he knew that calls at this hour never brought good news. He picked up the phone and heard the voice of his chief of staff. "Sir, we have a priority message from Ambassador Morgan. You need to see this immediately." Jonathan got dressed quickly and walked to the Oval Office. The building was quiet except for the security staff and a few night shift workers. He sat at his desk and opened the secure communication channel. Lisa's message was waiting for him. As he read it, his jaw tightened. The Kepler 442 system had been given to the Altarians, 47 votes to 3. Another humiliation for humanity, but it was the last part of the message that made him sit up straight. Lisa was recommending withdrawal from the Galactic Council. After 30 years of trying to be good members of the galactic community, she was ready to give up. Jonathan had been thinking the same thing for months, but hearing it from their most experienced diplomat made it real. He activated the emergency conference system. Within minutes, his top advisors were connecting from around the world. General Patricia Brooks appeared on screen from the Pentagon. Dr. Kevin Turner joined from the Science Consortium headquarters. Secretary of Defense Robert Clark connected from his home office. One by one, the most important people in human space gathered for the meeting that would change everything. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan began, we have reached a decision point. The Galactic Council has once again shown us that we will never be treated as equals. Ambassador Morgan is recommending complete withdrawal from the Council. I want to hear everyone's thoughts. General Brooks spoke first. Sir, we have been preparing contingency plans for this possibility. Operation Exodus is ready to implement. We can have every human asset out of Council space within 72 hours. Our military units are positioned to protect the withdrawal. Our merchant fleet is prepared to relocate. Our colonies have been stockpiling supplies for months. Dr. Turner leaned forward. The scientific implications are enormous. We have been sharing our research with alien species for 3 decades. If we withdraw, we take all of that knowledge with us. The medical breakthroughs alone could cripple their healthcare systems. The engineering data we have provided has become the foundation for most of their infrastructure. Secretary Clark looked worried. The economic impact will be severe. Not just for us, but for them. Human companies handle 40% of galactic shipping. Our agricultural exports feed 12 different species. Our mining operations provide rare minerals that power their technology. If we pull out, their economy will collapse. Jonathan nodded. That is exactly the point. They have been treating us like children while depending on us like adults. It is time to show them what happens when they lose their most productive members. The president opened a new communication channel. Get me Ambassador Morgan. Lisa's tired face appeared on the screen. Behind her, Jonathan could see the interior of the embassy ship. She looked older than he remembered. The years of fighting for human dignity had taken their toll. Lisa, he said, I have read your message. I agree with your assessment. We are done trying to prove ourselves to a species that will never accept us as equals. How quickly can you get our people out of Council space? Lisa's expression changed. For the first time in months, she looked hopeful. Sir, I can have our embassy staff ready to leave within hours. Our trade representatives can close their offices and be gone by tomorrow. Our military observers can return to their ships immediately. The question is whether we are really ready to take this step, General Brooks answered. Ambassador, we have been ready for this step for 2 years. Our fleet positions are optimized for rapid withdrawal. Our supply lines are secured. Our colonies are prepared for independent operation. We are not dependent on the Council for anything essential. Dr. Turner added, our research facilities have been backing up all data to Earth servers. If we implement the knowledge lockdown protocols, we can withdraw every piece of human innovation from their databases. They will lose decades of scientific advancement overnight. Jonathan made his decision. Operation Exodus is authorized. General Brooks, you have 72 hours to get every human asset out of Council space. Dr. Turner, you will implement the knowledge lockdown immediately. Secretary Clark, you will coordinate with our economic partners to establish new trade routes. Lisa, you will deliver our formal resignation to the Council in the most public way possible. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Across human space, the withdrawal began. Military ships that had been patrolling the borders of Council territory turned around and headed for Earth. Merchant vessels, loaded with alien goods, suddenly changed course for human ports. Scientists working on joint projects with alien researchers began packing their equipment. On the mining world of Kepler 186, Captain Ryan Murphy received orders to evacuate all human personnel. The mining station they had built was the most advanced in the galaxy. It had taken 3 years to construct and employed 2,000 human workers. The Rigelians who owned the system had been making enormous profits from human expertise and human labor. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are getting urgent messages from the Rigelian authorities. They want to know why we are shutting down operations." Ryan smiled grimly. "Tell them we are following new orders from Earth. All human operations in Council space are being terminated immediately." The evacuation of human personnel from Council space was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Transport ships that had been positioned for routine cargo runs suddenly became refugee vessels. Military escorts that had been protecting trade routes formed protective corridors for the exodus. Colony ships that had been preparing for expansion missions changed course to collect human citizens from alien worlds. Dr. Amy Richardson was working in her laboratory on the Council Medical Research Station when the evacuation order came. She had been developing a treatment for a plague that was spreading through several alien species. The research was almost complete, but the orders from Earth were clear. All human personnel were to return home immediately. Her alien colleagues could not understand what was happening. Dr. Zix9 from Andromeda had worked with her for 5 years. He considered her a friend and a brilliant scientist. When she told him she was leaving, he was shocked. "Amy, you cannot leave now. The research is too important. Millions of lives depend on finding a cure for this plague. Your work is the only hope we have." Amy looked at her old friend with sad eyes. "Zix, I have enjoyed working with you. But my government has made a decision. Humanity is leaving the Council. All human research projects are being terminated." Zix9's blue skin turned pale. "But why? What has happened? Surely this is some mistake." Amy shook her head. "No mistake. The Council has made it clear that humans are not welcome as equals. We are good enough to do the work, but not good enough to make the decisions. We are tired of being treated like children. It is time for us to go our own way." The alien doctor watched helplessly as Amy packed her research notes and personal belongings. 30 years of accumulated knowledge was walking out the door. The plague cure that could save millions of lives was leaving with her. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Human engineers abandoned construction projects that were half finished. Human doctors left medical facilities that depended on their expertise. Human teachers walked away from schools where they had been educating alien children. Human diplomats closed embassies that had been centers of cultural exchange. The economic impact was immediate and devastating. The stock markets on alien worlds crashed as human companies withdrew their investments. Trade routes that had operated for decades suddenly had no ships to carry cargo. Manufacturing plants that depended on human workers shut down for lack of personnel. On Earth, the mood was different. For the first time in decades, humans felt like they had control over their own destiny. The news broadcasts showed images of human ships returning home. The streets filled with people celebrating their independence from alien authority. Ambassador Lisa Morgan stood in the great chamber of the Galactic Council one last time. The alien delegates had gathered for an emergency session. They were demanding to know why humanity was withdrawing from joint projects and abandoning their obligations. The chamber was filled with angry voices and confused questions. Lisa walked to the center of the chamber. The speaker called for order, but the delegates continued talking among themselves. She activated her personal communication device, and her voice boomed through the chamber's sound system. "Honored delegates," she began, "I stand before you today to deliver humanity's formal resignation from the Galactic Council. After 30 years of membership, we have concluded that this organization does not serve our interests or respect our dignity." The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned toward the human ambassador. Lisa continued speaking in a calm, clear voice. "We came to you with open hearts and open minds. We offered our knowledge, our resources, and our friendship. In return, you gave us second-class citizenship and constant reminders of our supposed inferiority. You have taken our discoveries and given them to others. Why? The first sign of trouble came from the Rigelian agricultural worlds. Senator Thalrix had been one of the loudest voices demanding human withdrawal from important council decisions. He had spent years arguing that humans were too primitive to handle advanced responsibilities. Now he stood in his office watching food riots on the streets of his capital city. The problem was simple, but devastating. Rigelian crops had been failing for decades due to soil depletion and climate change. Human agricultural scientists had developed new fertilizers and crop rotation techniques that saved the Rigelian food supply. Human farmers had been working the fields alongside Rigelians for 15 years. But 3 weeks ago, every human agricultural expert had packed up and left. Thalrix's aide brought him the latest reports. Sir, the harvest projections are catastrophic. Without human farming techniques, we will lose 60% of our food production. The riots are spreading to 12 cities. The people are demanding to know why the humans left. Thalrix felt his rock-like skin growing cold. He had pushed for human restrictions because he believed his species was superior. The thought that Rigelians might actually need human help had never occurred to him. Now his world was facing starvation and he had no idea how to fix it. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. On the industrial world of Centauri, prime factory after factory shut down as human engineers and technicians disappeared. The humans had designed most of the automated systems that kept the factories running. Without human technical support, the machines began breaking down faster than they could be repaired. Admiral Sandra Price was leading a convoy of human ships through the Vega sector when the first alien vessels tried to intercept them. The Altarian patrol ships had been sent to force the humans to return to their assigned duties. Admiral Price had been expecting this and was ready for it. Altarian vessels, this is Admiral Price of the Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to stand down and allow our ships to pass. We are operating under lawful withdrawal from Council space. The Altarian commander's musical voice came through the communication system. Human vessels, you are violating Council regulations by abandoning your assigned positions. You will return to your duties immediately or face military action. Admiral Price smiled grimly. Altarian commander, you seem to be confused about our status. We are no longer members of the Galactic Council. We are no longer subject to Council authority. We are returning to Earth space and we will defend ourselves if attacked. The Altarian ships moved to block the human convoy. Admiral Price had been hoping it would not come to this, but she was prepared. Her ships had been equipped with the latest human weapons technology. The Council had always restricted human military development, but now those restrictions no longer applied. All ships, this is Admiral Price. Implement defensive formation Alpha. Prepare for combat. The human ships spread out in a pattern that maximized their firepower while protecting their civilian vessels. The Altarian commander had expected the humans to surrender when faced with superior numbers. Instead, he found himself facing a disciplined military force that showed no sign of backing down. The battle was brief but decisive. Human weapons that had been developed in secret proved far more effective than the Altarians had expected. Within minutes, 3 Altarian ships were disabled, and the rest were retreating. The human convoy continued on its way without losing a single vessel. News of the battle spread quickly through galactic communication networks. The species that had dismissed human military capability were suddenly forced to reconsider their assumptions. The humans had not just left the Council. They had proven they could defend themselves against anyone who tried to stop them. On the medical research station orbiting Proxima Centauri, Dr. Rachel Green was watching the chaos unfold through the observation deck windows. She had been the head of human medical research for the Council for 8 years. Her team had developed cures for 17 different alien diseases. Now she was gone and the diseases were coming back. The plague that had been spreading through the outer RIM worlds was the worst crisis. Human researchers had been working on a cure for 6 months. They had identified the virus and developed a treatment protocol. But when the withdrawal order came, they had to destroy their research rather than leave it behind. The Council had made it clear that human contributions were not valued. Now, they would have to solve the plague crisis without human help. Dr. Green's replacement was a Zephyrian scientist named Dr. Keck 7. He had been critical of human medical techniques and had pushed for human researchers to be removed from important projects. Now he was in charge of finding a cure for a plague that was killing thousands of people every day. The irony was not lost on Dr. Green. She had offered to continue working on the cure even after the withdrawal order. She had been willing to share her research to save lives, but the Council had refused. They had said human methods were too dangerous and too unpredictable. Now people were dying because of that decision. Back on Earth, the mood was completely different. President Hayes stood in the Situation Room watching reports from around the galaxy. The alien species that had treated humanity as junior partners were now begging for help. The Council that had dismissed human contributions was now facing the collapse of their entire civilization. General Brooks brought him the latest intelligence reports. Sir, we are seeing widespread economic collapse in Council space. The Rigelian food crisis is spreading to 6 systems. The Centauri industrial complex is down to 30% capacity. The Altarian luxury goods market has crashed completely. They are requesting emergency aid from Earth. President Hayes shook his head. General, what did they expect? They built their entire economy on human labor and human innovation. Then they treated us like we were disposable. Did they really think we would just keep working for people who showed us no respect? Dr. Turner entered the room with a tablet full of data. Sir, the communication channels are flooded with requests from alien scientists. They want access to our research databases. They want our medical data. They want our engineering specifications. They are offering to pay enormous amounts of money for information they used to get for free. The president looked at the data. The offers were indeed enormous. Some alien governments were offering to pay more for human research than Earth's entire annual budget. The desperation was obvious. Kevin, what is your recommendation? Dr. Turner smiled. Sir, I recommend we tell them that human research is too dangerous and too unpredictable for alien use. I believe those were their exact words when they canceled our joint research programs. The situation in Council space was getting worse every day. The Andromedan representative Elder Zix-9 had been one of the few alien leaders who had treated humans with respect. But even he was struggling to maintain order in his territory. The human engineers who had designed his world's power systems were gone. The backup generators were failing, and there were no human technicians to repair them. Elder Zix-9 sent a personal message to President Hayes. It was a plea for help disguised as a diplomatic communication. President Hayes, we have enjoyed many years of cooperation between our species. The current crisis in Council space is affecting innocent civilians who had nothing to do with political decisions. We would be grateful for any assistance Earth might provide. President Hayes read the message carefully. Elder Zix-9 had been one of the few Council members who had voted in favor of human proposals. He had supported human mining rights and had opposed restrictions on human military development. But he had also been part of a system that kept humans in second-class status. The president composed his reply. Elder Zix-9, I appreciate your message and I remember your past support for human interests. However, Earth is no longer a member of the Galactic Council. We are not responsible for solving Council problems. If individual species wish to establish new relationships with Earth, based on equality and mutual respect, we are open to discussions. But we will not provide aid to maintain a system that treated us as inferior. The response was polite but firm. Earth would not be bullied into returning to the Council. They would not be guilt-tripped into providing free assistance. They would not be manipulated into accepting second-class status again. The galactic economy continued to collapse. Trade routes that had operated for centuries were abandoned because there were no human ships to carry cargo. Manufacturing centers that had depended on human technical expertise shut down permanently. Agricultural worlds that had relied on human farming knowledge faced famine. The Council held emergency sessions every day, but they could not agree on solutions. Some delegates wanted to offer humans full membership with equal voting rights. Others wanted to use military force to compel human compliance. A few suggested that the Council should negotiate a new relationship with Earth, based on equality, but it was too late for easy solutions. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. The humans had proven they were not dependent on the Council for survival. In fact, the opposite was true. The Council was dependent on human knowledge, human labor, and human innovation. The species that had dismissed humans as too young and too primitive were learning a hard lesson. Age and tradition meant nothing without the ability to adapt and grow. 6 months after humanity left the Galactic Council, the galaxy looked completely different. The species that had ruled for thousands of years were struggling to maintain basic services. The humans who had been treated as junior partners were now the most sought-after allies in known space. Colonel Steve Mitchell stood on the bridge of the defense station, protecting Earth's new border with Council space. His sensors showed 3 more alien fleets approaching human territory. This was the 15th attempt by Council forces to pressure humanity into returning. Each attempt had been turned away with minimal force, but the message was always the same. "Colonel, we have incoming transmission from the lead Zephyrian vessel," his communications officer reported. Steve activated the main screen. The familiar blue face of a Zephyrian commander appeared. The alien looked tired and desperate. His once proud bearing had been replaced by something that looked almost like pleading. "Human Commander, I am Fleet Admiral Kex Prime of the Zephyrian Defense Force. I request permission to enter human space for emergency negotiations." Steve had been expecting this. The Zephyrians had been among the most vocal opponents of human equality. They had consistently voted against human proposals and had pushed for increased restrictions on human activities. Now, their industrial infrastructure was collapsing and they needed help. "Admiral Kex Prime, you are not authorized to enter human space. If you wish to request formal negotiations, you must contact our diplomatic service through proper channels. Until then, you will maintain your current position or withdraw to Council territory." The Zephyrian's forearms moved in what Steve recognized as a gesture of frustration. "Colonel, surely we can discuss this situation reasonably? The Zephyrian Empire has been a leader in the galaxy for 3,000 years. We are prepared to offer significant concessions for human technical assistance." Steve smiled grimly. "Admiral, the first and a military officer, not a diplomat. What I can tell you is that Earth is no longer interested in concessions. We tried that approach for 30 years. If your government wants to establish a new relationship with humanity, it will be based on equality and mutual respect. Nothing less will be acceptable." The transmission ended abruptly. Steve watched as the Zephyrian fleet maintained its position just outside human space. They were clearly hoping that a show of force might intimidate Earth into negotiations. They had not yet understood that intimidation no longer worked on humans. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim territories, something remarkable was happening. Species that had been marginalized by the Council were forming new alliances with humanity. The Free Traders Alliance had been a small group of independent merchants before the human withdrawal. Now it was becoming a major economic power with human backing. Captain Tony Williams commanded a human merchant vessel that was pioneering new trade routes through non-Council space. His ship carried goods between human colonies and alien worlds that had never been part of the galactic power structure. The profits were enormous, and the relationships were based on mutual benefit rather than political dominance. "Captain, we are receiving another request from the Deltaran Trade Consortium," his first officer reported. "They want to establish a permanent trade agreement with Earth?" Tony reviewed the proposal on his tablet. The Deltarans were a species that had been denied Council membership for over a century. They had rich mineral deposits and advanced manufacturing capabilities, but they had been shut out of galactic markets by Council trade restrictions. Now they were offering humanity exclusive access to their resources in exchange for protection and technical assistance. "Send word back to Earth," Tony said. "Recommend approval. The Deltarans are good people and they have resources we need. Plus, they are not part of the Council power structure. This is exactly the kind of relationship we should be building." On Earth, Dr. Nicole Barnes was having the time of her life. As head of the Independent Research Consortium, she was overseeing the most rapid period of scientific advancement in human history. Without council oversight and restrictions, human scientists were pushing the boundaries of known physics. The breakthrough had come from an unexpected source. Dr. Mark Peterson had been working on faster-than-light communication for years. The Council had always classified his research as too dangerous and had limited his access to advanced materials. Now, with unlimited resources and no restrictions, he had achieved the impossible. "Nicole, you need to see this," Mark said as he burst into her office. "We have established real-time communication with our colony ships in the Andromeda Galaxy. The time delay is less than 3 seconds. Nicole stared at the data on Mark's tablet. Faster-than-light communication had been considered theoretically impossible by council scientists. They had insisted that the fundamental laws of physics made it unachievable. But Mark had found a way around those laws using principles that council physicists had dismissed as fantasy. "Mark, this changes everything. If we can communicate instantly across galactic distances, we can coordinate activities on a scale the council never imagined. Our colonies will no longer be isolated outposts. They will be part of a connected network spanning multiple galaxies." The implications were staggering. Human colonies that had been established to escape council oversight were now becoming the foundation for a new kind of civilization. One that was not limited by the conservative thinking and ancient prejudices of the old galactic order. The political impact was even more significant. Senator Maria Lopez had been appointed as Earth's representative to the newly formed Independent Systems Alliance. This organization had grown from a small group of non-council species to a major political force that rivaled the council itself. Maria stood before the Alliance Assembly on the neutral world of New Geneva. Representatives from 47 different species filled the chamber. Some were refugees from council oppression. Others were species that had never been allowed to join the council. All of them were looking to humanity for leadership. "Fellow representatives," Maria began, "we gather today to establish a new model for galactic civilization. One based on equality rather than hierarchy, one that values contribution over age, one that rewards innovation over tradition." The alien delegates listened with intense interest. Many of them had spent centuries being told they were not advanced enough or stable enough or worthy enough to participate in galactic affairs. The Council had maintained its power by keeping other species divided and dependent. The Terran Republic proposes a charter for our alliance based on 3 principles. First, equal representation for all member species, regardless of size or age. Second, open trade and technology sharing among all members. Third, neutral defense against any force that threatens our independence. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Species after species stood to pledge their support for the new charter. The hegemony of independent worlds that had been fighting council dominance for centuries found themselves with powerful new allies. The rim territories that had been dismissed as too remote and primitive were suddenly part of a major political movement. Chancellor Vex Prime of the Orion Collective made the most surprising announcement of all. The Orion Collective had been one of the founding members of the Galactic Council 3,000 years ago. They had been part of the ruling elite for millennia. But even they were starting to question whether the Council served their interests. Ambassador Lopez, Chancellor Vex Prime said, "The Orion Collective has observed the recent changes in galactic affairs with great interest. We have concluded that the traditional power structures are no longer serving the needs of an evolving galaxy. We formally request consideration for membership in the Independent Systems Alliance." The chamber fell silent. If the Orion Collective joined the Alliance, it would represent a complete collapse of Council authority. Other founding species would likely follow their example. The galaxy was witnessing the end of an era. Maria looked around the chamber. 6 months ago, humanity had been begging for scraps from the council table. Now they were leading a revolution that was reshaping galactic civilization. The transformation was so complete it was almost unbelievable. "Chancellor Vex Prime, the Alliance welcomes your request." We will establish a committee to review your application and work out the details of membership. But I can say that any species committed to equality and mutual respect will find a home in our organization. The Council's attempts at economic warfare were backfiring spectacularly. Their trade embargo against human space had only accelerated the formation of alternative economic networks. The Free Trade Federation now included species that controlled 30% of the galaxy's industrial capacity. Dr. Raymond Clark was overseeing the construction of humanity's first mega-scale engineering project, the Solar Collection Array. Being built in the Sol system would generate more energy than the rest of the galaxy combined. The technology had been developed using principles that Council scientists had rejected as impossible. "Sir, the power output is exceeding all projections," his chief engineer reported. "We will be able to supply unlimited energy to all our colonies and our new allies. The Council worlds are still struggling with basic power generation while we are achieving energy abundance." Raymond nodded with satisfaction. Energy had always been the foundation of civilization. 1 year after humanity left the Galactic Council, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The ancient power structures that had ruled for millennia were crumbling while new alliances built around equality and mutual respect were taking their place. The species that had dismissed humans as too young to matter were now watching helplessly as human civilization expanded beyond their wildest imagination. Ambassador Lisa Morgan stood in the observation deck of New Geneva Station looking out at the most diverse collection of spacecraft she had ever seen. Ships from 63 different species were docked at the station's ports. The sleek vessels of the Deltaran Trade Consortium sat alongside the massive cargo haulers of the Rim territories. The elegant exploration ships of the hegemony of independent worlds shared docking space with the practical military vessels of Earth's defense force. New Geneva Station had become the diplomatic heart of the Independent Systems Alliance. Built in neutral space between human territory and the outer rim, it represented everything the Galactic Council had never been. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together. Governments that had never been allowed to participate in galactic affairs were helping to write new laws. The station hummed with the energy of a civilization being reborn. Lisa's assistant brought her the morning reports. The news was uniformly positive. 3 more species had applied for Alliance membership in the past week. The Council's attempts to organize a military response had collapsed when half their member species refused to participate. The economic indicators showed that Alliance territory was experiencing unprecedented growth while Council space continued to decline. "Ma'am, we have a priority communication from Chancellor Vex Prime," her assistant said. Lisa activated her office communication system. The familiar face of the Orion Collective's leader appeared on screen. 6 months ago, Vex Prime had shocked the galaxy by requesting Alliance membership. Now he was one of humanity's strongest supporters and closest allies. "Ambassador Morgan, I have news that will interest you greatly. The Zephyrian High Command has formally requested mediation talks with the Terran Republic. They are finally ready to acknowledge that their old approach has failed." Lisa smiled. The Zephyrians had been humanity's most consistent opponents in the Council. They had voted against every human proposal and had pushed hardest for restrictions on human activities. The fact that they were now asking for talks showed just how completely the situation had changed. "Chancellor, what are they offering?" Vex Prime's expression showed a mixture of amusement and satisfaction. "They are offering to recognize human sovereignty over all systems currently under Earth control. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations. Most importantly, they are willing to accept human colonies and systems they previously claimed as their exclusive territory." Lisa leaned back in her chair. A year ago, the Zephyrians had been demanding that humans abandon their colonies and submit to alien oversight. Now they were begging for permission to coexist with human expansion. The transformation was complete. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Dr. Michael Rodriguez was overseeing humanity's most ambitious project yet. The Frontier Expansion Program had sent colony ships deeper into unexplored space than any species had. ever gone, the ships were equipped with the latest human technology and carried populations eager to build new worlds, free from the constraints of old galactic politics. Sir, we have established successful colonies in 7 new star systems this month, his project coordinator reported. The terraforming technology is working better than expected. We will have fully habitable worlds within 2 years instead of the projected 5. Dr. Rodriguez looked at the star charts showing humanity's expanding sphere of influence. The red dots representing human colonies now extended far beyond the traditional boundaries of known space. Each colony was a beacon of human values and human innovation. They were also proof that humans no longer needed anyone's permission to explore and settle new worlds. The environmental technology they were using had been developed in secret during the years of Council restrictions. Human scientists had always known they could terraform worlds faster and more effectively than alien methods allowed. But the Council had insisted that human techniques were too dangerous and too unpredictable. Now those same techniques were creating garden worlds where alien technology had seen only barren rock. Back on Earth, President Hayes was meeting with the leaders of the world's major governments. The success of humanity's independence had created new opportunities and new responsibilities. Earth was no longer just another world struggling for recognition. It was the center of a growing alliance that spanned multiple galactic regions. Ladies and gentlemen, the President said, we have received formal requests from 18 different species asking for protection from Council retaliation. Our success has inspired others, but it has also made us a target. We need to decide how far we are willing to go to defend our new allies. General Brooks brought up the strategic display showing Alliance territory. The green zones, representing friendly space, had grown dramatically over the past year, but they were still surrounded by red zones showing Council-controlled systems. The potential for conflict was obvious. Sir, our military capabilities have expanded beyond all previous projections. The new weapon systems we have developed give us a significant advantage over Council forces. Our shipyards are producing vessels faster than they can build them. If it comes to war, we can win decisively. The President nodded but looked thoughtful. Patricia, I want to win this confrontation without having to destroy anyone. War should be our last option, not our first choice. Dr. Turner entered the room with a tablet full of data. Sir, I think we may have found a better solution. Our intelligence networks report that the Council is experiencing massive internal divisions. Several founding species are considering following the Orion Collective's example and joining our alliance. If we can accelerate that process, we might not need military action at all. The intelligence was encouraging. The Altarian Consortium that had taken the Kepler 442 system from humanity was facing internal rebellion. Their member worlds were questioning why they should remain loyal to an organization that was clearly failing. The Rugelian Republic was dealing with food riots and economic collapse. Even their proud leaders were starting to wonder if they had made a terrible mistake. The most significant development came from an unexpected source. Elder Zix-9 of the Andromedan Council had been one of the few alien leaders who had consistently treated humans with respect. Now he was leading a faction within the Council that wanted to completely restructure the organization along Alliance Principles. Lisa received Zix-9's message late in the evening. It was marked as a personal communication rather than an official diplomatic document. The message was brief, but its implications were enormous. Ambassador Morgan, I write to you as a friend rather than as a representative of the Council. The organization we have both served is dying. The question is whether it will be replaced by something better or whether it will simply collapse into chaos. I believe the Alliance model represents the future of galactic civilization. Would the Terran Republic be willing to discuss the possibility of absorbing reformed Council territories into the Alliance structure? Lisa read the message 3 times to make sure she understood it correctly. Zix-9 was essentially offering to hand over large portions of Council space to Alliance control. It would mean the end of the Galactic Council as a meaningful political force and the establishment of the Alliance as the dominant power in the galaxy. She forwarded the message to President Hayes with her recommendation: the Alliance should accept any council species that were willing to embrace equality and mutual respect, but they should not compromise their principles to accommodate alien prejudices or ancient hierarchies. The President's response came within hours. Earth was ready to welcome any species that wanted to join the new galactic order, but they would have to prove their commitment to Alliance values. The days of special privileges for older species were over forever. The transformation was accelerated by practical necessity. The plague that had been spreading through the Outer Rim was finally contained when human medical teams shared their research with Alliance members. The energy crisis that had been crippling industrial worlds was solved when human engineers built new power generation systems. The food shortages that had caused riots across council space were addressed when human agricultural experts developed new farming techniques, each crisis solved by human innovation, and Alliance cooperation demonstrated the superiority of the new system. Species that had been taught to fear and dismiss human capabilities were forced to acknowledge that humans had become the most important force in galactic civilization. Admiral Jake Sullivan received the final confirmation from his intelligence networks. The Galactic Council had voted to dissolve itself and petition for membership in the Independent Systems Alliance. The vote had been close, but the reality of their situation had finally penetrated even the most stubborn alien minds. Lisa Morgan stood once again in the Great Chamber where she had delivered humanity's resignation speech 1 year earlier. But this time the chamber was filled with hope instead of anger.